most people have no idea how much to spend on marketing. And when they hear this tip, often realize that they're not spending enough. So with the new year, I think it's a perfect time to reassess your marketing budget and to ensure that you have enough money put aside to help your business grow for the next year. So my general rule of thumb is to put aside 10 to 15% of projected gross revenue. So that is going to include everything from labor to ad spend to execution. So the execution box, in case it's confusing, are things like conference booth materials or the fees to be at a conference or the cost to travel, and anything that surrounds getting your marketing done will come out of this 10 to 15%. But that is if your business is established. So when you're looking, so your business you've been in business for 10 years, your business is growing every year, so should your marketing budget, but it's going to stay within that 10 to 15%. So as your business grows, that 10 to 15% is also growing. So that gives you kind of a benchmark for how to continue to invest in marketing the bigger that you get over time. If you're a new business, so if you're opening into market, or you've done a rebrand, or you're introducing a new product or vertical, you want to put aside at least 20 to 25% of projected top line gross revenue. Now that 20 to 25% is different than the investment in the brand for launch. So there's a sunk cost that comes with establishing a brand to go to market. And what that should cost really depends on what the business you're in, the plan for your business, and what it's worth to your business. So if you're a nail salon that's opening a brick and mortar store in your local area, your brand should cost significantly less than if you're opening up a new law firm or medical spa and you're projected to make $10 million in the first year. The cost of your brand and what goes into it should change depending on the projection or plan for your business. And it's too hard for me to give a range for brands because brands really are a black box. If you're looking to invest in your business and for it to survive for the next 10 to 15 years, you want to spend a good chunk of change. A good brand from a professional is going to cost you anywhere from $15,000 to $35,000 just for a brand. And that's like logo, brand guide, some applications, some social media strategy, just kind of those foundational pieces to get it going. Websites can cost a significant chunk as well, but it depends what you need for the website, right? Like how much work needs to go into it. A landing page, like a one pager, again, if you're a nail salon, you don't need a ton of info. You don't need a ton of tabs. You pretty much just need a site where people can call you and figure out how much your services cost. That's very different than if you're launching a clothing company or if you're launching a law firm. So I'm not going to get into giving price figures for branding, but when you are launching a brand, the cost for your brand launch needs to be separate than the cost of your marketing, because the way that you need to look at launching your brand is, this is what's going to establish my brand and market by way of look and feel. This is how I'm going to attract people. This is how I'm going to get them to buy. This is how I'm going to establish a connection with him. That's the brand. The 20 to 25% is going into brand awareness. So going into the marketing once you've launched in market to reach potential customers so that they can engage with your brand, realize that you've got a product or service that fits in their life and that you're the best person for that job. The reason why the price point is higher by a percentage, by double, is because you need more brand recalls when you're new to live, or rather, you need more impressions in a consumer's mind for them to link your product and service to their problem category or industry. So the amount of times that you've been exposed to Bounty, the quicker picker upper, and know that that's a paper towel company is probably over 200 times. So it takes, the data shows that it takes about 7 to 8 times for someone to just be able to remember your name. And then the more impressions after that 7 to 8 are when it locks in to get you into a conversion. So when you think of the sales funnel, the top of the sales funnel is purely awareness. So you need more money to increase that awareness for people to think of you when they need to get their nails done, when they need a lawyer, when they need to get a facial, when they need a new pair of leggings. There's a ton of brand impressions that are required in order to get that conversion or sale. Once you're in market, I like to kind of lead with the 20-25% for 2 years, 3 years if you have a healthy budget, because the longer that you invest in brand awareness, the better the ROI is going to be on your marketing. And if you plan for at least that percentage of your gross revenue for 2 to 3 years, you're going to be set up for success no matter what happens, because there's so many things that happens when you launch that you don't know how the market is going to respond. So you need to be able to have the space to pivot and change.
I know it's a nuanced gray line, but is there some kind of line that you could help define
for what to do?
The difference between your brand launch and then what constitutes that 20 to 25% post-launch?
For the maintenance, I hear what you're saying. So when I say in quotations brand launch, we as an agency do brand launches differently. So I do want to make sure that that's clear. The way that I approach branding is I don't just do logos and websites for a client and send them off, because a logo and a website is a significant investment, because it's a significant amount of time that it takes to put into having a great logo and a great website. And where I struggle with my experience as being the professional and working with business owners who are lost is that they can't understand what they got when they spend X amount of dollars on a logo and website, and then it goes live and then the phones aren't ringing, right? Because a logo and a website aren't enough. So the way that I see brand launches is that I want to support and set up our clients to have, usually it's like a 3-month run of like dedicated outbound marketing so they can start to generate awareness and conversions so they can start to make back their investment, because seeing money early always helps when people are super stressed for starting a new business and forking out all this cash and like waiting for the business to start rolling. But to answer your question like accurately, launching a brand is just basically like opening the door. So like when you come into a boardroom of a marketing agency, you have a business plan, a business concept, and a business name often. And you have an idea for how you're going to go into market and who you're going to service and what you're going to do. All of the brand preparation happens behind that closed door. Like the world doesn't know you're going through logo iterations or someone's writing the copy for your website. So when I say brand launch, that's just like opening the door and just showing the world through Instagram or TikTok or Facebook or through whatever way makes sense for your business that like, hey, new brand is here. And then anything else past the hey, new brand is here is what typically comes out of that 20 to 25%. So by changing your old website to your new website or launching a brand new website is launching your brand, but it's not actively marketing your brand to generate business. So that's the kind of the difference between the two of them.
Does it mean then that there might be things that you are like endeavors? Let's just simplify it by saying like you're running a Google Ads campaign. Yeah. I know we'd be more creative than that, but you want to run a Google Ads campaign post-launch about your business, but you elect to start running that, a couple of weeks before your formal doors open, launch, celebration, grand opening, whatever that looks like. Then because you kind of started that budget a few weeks in ahead, is that considered still part of that 20 to 25% of your like ongoing marketing budget? Or do you consider that to be a part of the sunk cost of your brand launch?
It's a bit of a roundabout answer, but I do think it's worth kind of almost exhaustively answering this question. The reason why I separate a brand versus the marketing for the new brand is because the cost of the logo and the website should not be factored into your Google AdWords budget. Like the cost of needing a brand is its own thing. It's on its own island. You can't have a business if you don't have a logo and a website in 2023. Like it doesn't have to be a logo that it's designed by one of the top agencies, but like you have to have something, right? Like no one launches a website and it's just like, call me, right? There's some kind of form of branding. So that piece has to be separate from any marketing. The 20-25% is just a rule of thumb, right? Like if you have $3 million budget, you have investors, you've saved money, you're going into launch, having more than 25% just helps you be more successful faster, right? Like marketing is an investment. And the idea is that everything you're doing should be trackable and is designed to have a return on investment, which we use ROI for. So if you did an AdWords launch as part of the brand launch, like if you work with us at TEI, we do brand launch packages and it's X amount of dollars depending on what you need and what we agree to. That lasts 6 months. And then you have the remaining 6 months of the year for continued marketing. Whether you have an investment that covers the initial brand launch as separate than the 25%, or if you're absolutely handcuffed and your like logo website is separate, is a conversation that you're having as a business owner and your C-suite executives. But knowing that there is a difference between the two is relevant.
One of the things I know earlier that you'd mentioned, and I don't know if this is kind of what you're trying to get at now, is that businesses quite often lack the ability to assess the kind of the outcome of that and be able to gauge or be
how to
comfortable
spend money
in that 25%, because they feel like they're just throwing money away or they don't know how to assess.
The next question that I find is difficult is to develop that marketing budget. Like if I was to give you like percentage line serials for how much to spend on labor and how much to spend on ad spend and how much to spend on like if you're going to decide to go to a conference or not, or those additional elements. And there isn't a one size fits all answer. So as a business owner, like this is where having a professional or at least doing your research or just setting aside the time to really think about your marketing budget is important. Because I find a lot of business owners, they just, once they have that budget and they get excited because they've now been given like a range for their revenue, they're like, okay, great. Like, let me just find an agency. I've got a budget of $10,000 per month. This agency is quoting 5. That fits my budget. And that isn't the right way to look at it. And it's even difficult for me to give examples because you have to understand what are the goals for your business. Like, what are you looking to achieve for marketing next year? And it needs to be focused, right? It can't just be to make sales, right? Is it a specific department? Is it, do you have certain benchmarks or goals, quarterly, monthly, yearly? Is there something that you want the business to grow into in the next 1, 3, or 5 years? And how is your marketing going to achieve what the goals are, what the aims are for where your business is growing and going? For example, if I was to even look at how to develop a budget for Third Eye Insights, our marketing budget right now has been really heavily into content creating and producing and getting our content out there. But as our business evolves, my goals looking at 2024 is going to be different for where I allocate dollars spent, because now our pipeline for video conversions is much stronger than it is for, let's say, web design or for logo design, right? Like I need to kind of focus what areas of the business do I want to grow so that our marketing budget is applied properly to grow the agency further. This is probably a bit circular, and I know the people listening are wanting like a very clear takeaway, but that's what I get nervous about is kind of this next step. It depends what your budget is. If you have, let's say, it's easier for me to look at it when there's a smaller budget for small businesses or smaller medium-sized businesses that maybe are making $1 million in revenue. That $10,000 per month is worth a hell of a lot more to your business than if you're a $50 million business and you have more money to throw around, because a lot of marketing is testing. And that's where I don't like small businesses getting tied up into marketing contracts with agencies, because they're just paying for labor and they have no space to try things. So I don't like when small businesses say, I have $10,000 per month. I therefore have a budget for an agency at $5,000 to $6,000, because any agency that now knows your budget is just going to put themselves at a top range to spend that money, but that may not be the most effective for your business. So yesterday I was having a call with a pretty prominent law firm that has money but never thought about putting aside some dollars, and they were looking at agencies within the $1,000 to $3,000 range. And I'm like, well, you're not going to get anything good for that when you're a law firm and you're a top law firm. Like, you need to have a certain level of professionalism, expertise, and knowledge to market your firm in a way that's actually going to push your business forward and not just be a cash barbecue. So if you're saying I only have $5,000 or $10,000 per month, I think a better use of your time would be to do a mailer campaign where so this law firm specializes in family planning and like wills and estates, and they really want to educate the community for where their multiple offices are about family planning, because it's like 80% of people don't have a will. So what I said for your budget, I'm like, okay, well, this makes way more sense if you did 4 quarterly pushes or 3 quarterly pushes of doing a big mail out campaign with Canada Post, and you picked specific school districts within your communities, do a mass market mailing for tied to an event. So like an actual education session where people can come in and can learn about family planning and wills. And you are also advertising your services. If you did that 4 times a year, your ROI is going to be greater than hiring a agency for $2,000 per month that's just going to be pumping out generic socials. Like, it's a completely different way of looking at your marketing budget. The reason why I'm explaining this is like that strategy may not work for everybody, and it may only be a great strategy for that law firm for the next year until they get past their 20% growth goal, and then now they have they have extra money next year to put into marketing, and now we can look at a more robust plan. So whatever budget you have, it doesn't need to be broken down for percentage of like labor, ad spend, or events. Like, different marketing can be strategic, and especially when you're in saturated industries where you have big players that can outspend you. Like, look, trying to put aside a measly budget of, within your 5K, putting some into Google AdWords, and you're also paying for labor for someone to run it, is not going to be the best use of your money. I'd be like, don't touch Google AdWords with a 10-foot pole. But it's hard for me also to be like, right, like exactly what you should be doing. So I hope that makes sense in the way that I've articulated.
I think it's something that people very easily overlook, is that like when we think of a brick and mortar location, the term overhead is an intuitive thing. Like, there's going to be costs associated with running the business that aren't actually related to the food you're putting out or something like that. But the same thing goes with your marketing endeavors. It's something that's easy to forget, that when you allocate 10 grand to a Google Ads budget, you're not actually spending 10 grand on ads.
Yes.
You're spending a portion of that on ads and a rather large portion of that on the labor associated with running the campaign and doing those things with the agency and stuff. I have a question, just real quick, because it's really easy to throw out those percentages and then have people get really, really comfortable with those percentages. So if there's a strategy behind any marketing endeavors, then is there any concern for businesses to go above that percentage?
No.
As long as there's a strategy there, is that always going to be like, if you have the capacity to put more into marketing, then this isn't like okay, I'm in between 20 and 25%. Now I can walk away and stop thinking about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like I'm going into a philosophical wormhole on marketing budget, but I think it's actually probably a good conversation for people listening out there. It's so tough when I'm sitting in this position talking without looking at the individual in their business, because on one hand, the first way I wanted to answer your question is I almost want you to not be stressed or frustrated about what your budget is, because you're never going to be priced out of marketing. It just allows you to understand or get a better gauge of what you can afford to do and what's going to be the most strategic for your goals. So the reason why I say that is like there's that famous quote where I know that half my marketing is working, but I don't know what half of it is working. And you have that luxury when you have more money to spend, because a lot of marketing is testing. And that's what we don't talk about enough when we're educating people on marketing, is that really the best way to market is to be able to have the money to test the market and to see what consumers respond best to. But when you have less of a budget, you have less of that flexibility and freedom. So what you need to do has to be better. So instead of doing more, do less, but have it more focused. So if you're a smaller business and you still need ads, you may not be able to do 4 ads per quarter. It may be 1 ad per quarter, or maybe 2 really great ads per year. So instead of looking at it as like a cost per month to an agency, figure out what your goals are and what's going to make the most sense to get there. And that's why I specialize in strategy and doing discoveries with clients to help develop for them a plan before I'm even quoting them before they get started. Because that's always the second question after the discovery is, how much do you cost to work with? And the answer has to be, you're not going to be priced out of marketing as long as you have a marketing budget. But what you're going to get is only what's going to make sense for your budget and for your goals. Now, where you went with your question as far as if you have more money, can you throw more money at it? And is money therefore an excuse to not be dialed into the strategy? And the first answer is, if you have more money, of course, the reason why you're doing marketing is it's an investment. So if you have more money to invest, you're only going to reap a greater reward. And I do recommend people have the ability to play around with things. And this is one thing I talk about a lot in marketing budgets is I like to have, when I develop a budget for a client, I have line serials built out. This is labor. This is suggested, Facebook ad spend per month or Instagram ad spend per month. This is the cost to shoot ads per quarter. This is going to be the cost of the budget for the conference. But then I also like to leave money below that's like a purse. And the purse allows us to do things that come up, right? Like interesting opportunities that are interesting to try, that we don't hold a lot of weight on trying it, but it allows us to actually test a new opportunity. So that allows us to say, okay, well, of the budget, if 80% of it is tied to clear platforms, clear ROI metrics or KPIs, key performance indicators, and return on investment, which is those two acronyms, we have a 20% at below that's able to try things out. And that also allows for things like if you have a video that goes viral, put money behind it so that it can go more viral. Like I hear all the time clients are like, they get this one viral video that allows them to get like insane bookings or sales for like 3 months straight. I'm like, okay. And then please tell me you put $1,000 behind it and you went all the way with it. And they're like, no, I didn't think that would work, or that's a good idea, or I don't have that in my budget. Like, well, have that in your budget. Like you should plan for something to go viral or do crazy so that you can put more into it. Even clients that do radio, like I like having a purse so that if 1 month phones are ringing off the hook, I'm calling up the radio team. I'm like, top me up, like give me another 15% because it's working. So that's another piece for that kind of purse when you're asking like, if I have more money, one, you can develop a budget further than that, but two, also having that purse to try things, to do some research, to test things out is smart.
And for the more like business oriented people that are listening to it, it is the expectation of that purse, not that there's no strategy behind what you spend from it, but that you're not concerned about knowing there's going to be a return on that investment.
Yeah.
Right. Like
yeah.
with intelligent decision making and good marketing overall, chances are most all the things you'll try will generate good revenue for you. But the expectation is that purse is sitting there and you could spend all of it and not see a return on it. But that's okay because it allowed you to do some of that testing that, well, we won't try that next time. Is that kind of the...
Yeah, I want to say this with an asterisk because it's how I approach marketing. And I do want people listening to this to be weary, critical, and ask questions of whoever is doing their marketing, because you should always understand what the strategy is and it be more than just an answer like, oh, this is for brand awareness. Like, dig 2 to 3 layers deeper by asking more questions. But the way that I answer these questions for the clients that I work with is there's often no downside. Like putting an additional 5% budget into having your videos reach a 30% larger audience, what's the downside, right? Like, yes, it may not be an immediate sale tomorrow, or it may not be an immediate sale next week, but you tried it out and the outcome was that your brand went farther, connected with more people, and probed conversations that you're not privy to right now that you do not know when you're going to reap. So often, like, good investing in personal branding, investing in and pushing your business further isn't a waste. When I find it's a waste is when you're buying people's pipe dreams. So you're spending crazy money at agencies for these service-based contracts where they're promising you the moon and you're not understanding the strategy. You're kind of questioning the product or the output. If that's the case, then you are wasting money, right? Like if you have doubt, there's no doubt, right? So it's in that way, yes, ask questions, be weary, you're like, cash barbecues and marketing is a real thing. It's where marketing gets a really bad rap. But if you're working with the right person, or you're educating yourself and you're investing in personal branding, you're trying out new kinds of content styles. Like when we test out stuff on TikTok, the first time we do it, it doesn't necessarily do well, but I'm learning a hell of a lot. I'm able to teach my clients more information. I'm growing as a creator because I'm understanding what audiences respond better to. So it's not a waste of time, money, and resources. So in that way. And then I also want to touch on too your question on, you know, if you have money, can you just like let the money go to work? And the answer is absolutely not. Like it's the more money that's on the line, the bigger your company, the more well known your brand is, are all just pressure points for reasons for you need to be more dialed in. Like the CEO of Nike doesn't get to just be like, whatever, fuck it, let's just like throw something at the wall. Like they need to be more dialed in because there's a deep connection to that brand that's been built over generations. And that's why our content is so focused on ripping apart these brands that are making such floozy and fleeting decisions. So the more money you have, you should have experts that can do more of the work for you. And that is a key takeaway from this podcast, is that when you're smaller and you have less money, be more focused on what you're putting out there and be in the driver's seat, because it's never been easier to create great content that will push your business further. Like, don't make excuses if you have a small budget. Just, you are becoming the CMO. It's never been easier to learn how to digital market. Get on TikTok, get on YouTube and learn and practice, because you're never good the first time at anything. So practice, do the work, make embarrassing videos, go through the process and struggle like we all did to get good at it, or to get good at anything. But when you're smaller, when you're big, the focus on being dialed into your brand is the same. It's just when you get bigger, there's more hands in the pocket because you're doing more and you need to trust your experts, but you still need to be very much involved to make sure that you're not having a bigger cash barbecue. If anyone else has any questions, this is something I do get asked a lot, and I find it gives a lot of value to even clients that I get the privilege of speaking with off the internet. So if you have any questions with marketing budgets, if you want me to dig into it any further, write questions in the comments or send us an email to askcamille@thirdeyeinsights.ca, because we will be going through these questions during podcasts.